Okay, so Edifier has just released a brand new pair of earbuds, the NeoBuds S, and these probably look familiar because they have an almost identical design to the popular NeoBuds Pro that were reviewed a few months back. If you look at the spec sheet, you'll see that the feature set is extremely similar, but these lose one of the Pro's best features, and yet, these are much more expensive. So the question on my mind is, why has Edifier released these? In this review, we'll compare the NeoBuds S and Pro side by side, I'll explain everything that's new, whether or not these fix the issues I addressed with the NeoBuds Pro, and we'll be finding out which pair you should actually buy. First of all, the unboxing experience is basically identical, and you get the same fancy presentation and contents in this smaller box, which the NeoBuds Pro have also now been updated to use. So aside from the earbuds, we have the grey carrying bag, a fantastic selection of ear tips, the USB-C charging cable, and the usual paperwork. One small change with the ear tips is that they're now clear as opposed to black, so it shows off the coloured part of the tip, and I think does look slightly better. The case is also identical apart from this new darker finish. The metal surface is now a sandblasted black finish as opposed to brushed silver, and there are gold accents to complement it. But you're also able to change the cool pulsing LED colour on the charging case with the NeoBuds S, whereas this was red only for the NeoBuds Pro. It's a bit of a pain to do this since you have to first put one earbud back, and the earbuds then disconnect and reconnect from the app, so you can't just easily change this on the fly, but it's cool to have some more customization. The new darker finish is carried over to the earbuds as well, but the earbud shape and size hasn't changed at all. It's purely an aesthetic change, but I think they look pretty good. These earbuds offer a very comfortable fit in the ear, and with such a great ear tip selection, there's a good chance you'll get a secure fit too. These have the same IP54 rating as before, so nothing else about the durability or design has changed. Unfortunately, this means that the NeoBuds' poor touch controls make a return, which are rather unresponsive. You can help this a little bit by increasing the sensitivity in the app, but even then, they're also extremely limited. You still only get a double or triple tap gesture. There's no single tap or even a tap and hold, which means you don't have many controls available on the earbuds. There's still no wearing detection either, so I end up having to use my phone to control everything. The only small thing that's changed with the controls is that if you select to have changing the listening mode as part of the control scheme, you can now select specific modes that are cycled between with the touch controls, so that's a minor but nice improvement. You may have spotted that there is a new wind noise reduction mode for the NeoBuds S. This isn't especially strong in terms of noise cancelling, but it does effectively reduce wind noise if you're finding this an issue. The only annoying thing is that you can't use this during phone calls, i.e. the perfect scenario for having wind noise reduction, so that was disappointing. As for the ANC performance though, this is unchanged, and that's not a bad thing. The NeoBuds have really effective noise cancelling, and you can hear a noticeable drop in the external noise when you turn it on, so combined with good passive noise isolation, they do a great job of blocking out noise. The transparency or ambient mode is excellent too, and lets you clearly hear your surroundings, but it was disappointing that you can't adjust the level of transparency like you can with the NeoBuds Pro, so that's actually a downgrade. There's a tiny change with battery life, so you'll now get an extra 30 minutes when listening with ANC, and an extra hour in total. There's sadly still no wireless charging though, so it's still USB-C only. Connectivity is really what makes the NeoBuds S different from the Pro. The Bluetooth version gets bumped up to 5.2, but the most significant change is the introduction of Snapdragon Sound, Qualcomm's new technology that combines their best audio and connectivity to supposedly deliver better sound, calls, and lag-free gaming. But there are lots of specific caveats and requirements that are needed for this, so the whole situation gets quite complicated. So first of all, as part of Snapdragon Sound, the S model now has aptX and aptX adaptive support, which replaces LDAC and LHDC from the NeoBuds Pro. Snapdragon Sound promises 24-bit 96kHz audio, with a dynamic bitrate that is claimed to offer over 1 megabits per second, though the rate is technically listed as up to 860 kilobits per second for the NeoBuds S. But more than this, it's also supposed to offer lossless, CD quality audio for the first time over Bluetooth. So this is how Snapdragon Sound not only competes with, but could even exceed the performance of LDAC. But the fundamental issue with Snapdragon Sound is how few phones actually support it. The list of Snapdragon Sound supported devices is very short. It's mostly Xiaomi and Motorola phones, for which the NeoBuds S are clearly marketed. It's a little bit like LHDC support on the NeoBuds Pro, except in this case there are even fewer phones that support it. Plus the Pros also had LDAC for the phones that didn't support LHDC, so there was at least one high-end codec for essentially all Android phones. It seems that Snapdragon Sound also requires at least the Snapdragon 888 chipset, so you might expect some of the newer Android flagships to support it, right? Well, unfortunately, Samsung phones, for example, only support aptX and not aptX HD or aptX Adaptive, so if you own one of those, then you're not going to benefit from Snapdragon Sound, so actually losing the LDAC codec is a downgrade. Google's Pixel phones don't have aptX adaptive either, so like Samsung phones, they'll just use regular aptX with the NeoBuds S and now lose out on LDAC support, which they would have with the NeoBuds Pro. iPhones won't support Snapdragon Sound either, so that's 3 of the biggest smartphone names already that seemingly won't get any of the benefits of Snapdragon Sound. So for most people, the biggest new feature of the NeoBuds S is actually a downgrade from the NeoBuds Pro. Still, I wanted to see and hear the supposed benefits of Snapdragon Sound, so I paired the earbuds with a Xiaomi 12 Pro, a phone that is officially listed by Qualcomm as supporting it. Sure enough, after connecting the earbuds, you get a reassuring pop-up saying that Snapdragon Sound is available. You can hear a subtle but clear improvement in instrument separation and high-end detail. It's a similar improvement to what you get turning on LDAC with the NeoBuds Pro. The connection was also perfectly stable, one of the key features of aptX Adaptive that some may view as a benefit over LDAC. My only issue is that there doesn't seem to be a way to enable the new lossless format, or at least to ensure it's enabled. Edifier have recommended that you select 96 kHz in the developer settings, but that's only higher quality with aptX Adaptive, not necessarily lossless. I know we're starting to get into very subtle differences in audio quality that most people won't even notice or care about. You'd need to be streaming from a lossless source too, and true audiophiles aren't going to use wireless earbuds for high-end listening anyway. But it's a shame not to be able to easily test the full capabilities of Snapdragon Sound and how this can improve things over LDAC. I'm going to come back to sound quality and the differences from the NeoBuds Pro, but for now, the USP of the NeoBuds S, though initially quite promising, just seems far too limited. A lot of people are going to end up buying these new earbuds with the promise of Snapdragon Sound, which is heavily marketed, only to find that they can't actually benefit from it at all. So the loss of the LDAC codec will either be irrelevant or just a downgrade. But that's just the audio quality part of Snapdragon Sound. I also wanted to test the mic quality improvements for phone calls, and the new low latency gaming that Snapdragon Sound is supposed to bring.
So you're listening now to the NeoBuds S, and I'm recording this as usual in a relatively noisy environment, so you can hear how well the earbuds isolate my voice from the background noise. They're using aptX Voice, the new super wideband voice tech that's part of Snapdragon Sound, which is supposed to bring crystal clear voice calls. But I actually found these worse than the NeoBuds Pro, and this was the case on all phones I tested, including iPhones. So this makes me think that perhaps something else has changed internally with the hardware, but even on a Snapdragon Sound phone, the call quality wasn't great. Switching over to the NeoBuds Pro now, you can immediately hear that my voice is louder and much clearer to hear on a phone call. The background noise is louder too, so perhaps the noise cancelling tech isn't as aggressive here. But either way, calls are clearer on the NeoBuds Pro, so that's another downgrade with the new S model.
And finally, I checked out the gaming performance. Not that this is of huge importance to most people, but more just to verify if Snapdragon Sound brings any benefit here. Sure enough, the difference was immediately apparent. With fast-paced games like COD, the lag is noticeably lower with the NeoBuds S even before you turn on game mode. So the low latency of Snapdragon Sound does seem to work really well. With non-Snapdragon Sound phones though, there's not really any improvement at all with the NeoBuds S. Turning on game mode brings a subtle improvement, and iOS users will fare much better than Android users, but it's not as good as on a Snapdragon Sound phone. So finally, there is a clear example of Snapdragon Sound phones getting better performance by using the NeoBuds S instead. But again, do you actually own a phone that could benefit from this? Okay, so that's Snapdragon Sound, but let's talk more about the sound quality and if the NeoBuds S actually sound any better than the NeoBuds Pro. Well, the short answer is no. The drivers are unchanged, so the only reason we might expect a difference is because of how heavily marketed the new Snapdragon Sound feature is. But there is almost nothing to separate the two, and the vast majority of people won't notice any difference at all. If you really listen closely and nitpick, then I'd say the Pro's bass does boom a tiny bit more, whereas it's slightly more refined and controlled on the new S model. Interestingly, this was something I heard even when paired to an iPhone, so it seems to be more of a tuning difference rather than related to any codecs. If you have a Snapdragon Sound phone and can utilise the new codecs, then I would say that there's ever so slightly better instrument separation and treble clarity compared to what you get with LDAC on the NeoBuds Pro. Again, this difference is incredibly subtle, and it's something that most people will either not be able to hear, or that just shouldn't worry about. Even if you do have a phone that supports this, the difference isn't enough to make the S model essential over the Pro version. So for all intents and purposes, the NeoBuds S still sound just as fantastic as the NeoBuds Pro. The Pros are one of the best sounding earbuds out there for the price, with lovely clear mids, excellent depth, especially with the dynamic EQ, and they have detailed crisp highs as well. Edifier missed an opportunity to simplify the overly complicated custom EQ in the app. It's enough to give even audiophiles a headache, and it hasn't changed from the NeoBuds Pro. Oh, except for the light theme with the S model, as opposed to the dark one. So in summary, the NeoBuds S still sound fantastic. but there's definitely no need to upgrade from the NeoBuds Pro based on the sound quality. The NeoBuds S are definitely a great pair of true wireless earbuds, but the issue I'm having is justifying buying them over the NeoBuds Pro. The new S model is significantly more expensive at $180 compared to $130, and when you look at what you get for that, I just don't see how that's worth it. Trading LDAC, the widely supported high-res codec, for one so desperately limited in support is a rather baffling decision. That, combined with the obvious drop in call quality, and removing customization from transparency mode, are changes that I doubt will be met with much enthusiasm from most users. The improvements you get are also very subtle. Slightly reduced lag when gaming, again only on specific phones, an extra half an hour of battery life, and you can now change the colour of a light. You get bigger changes with some software updates, let alone a whole new model being released for an extra $50. I just feel like Edifier missed a big opportunity to improve what was lacking with the NeoBuds Pro, rather than focusing on the sound quality, which was already great. The controls need a lot of work, there's still no wearing detection, wireless charging, multi-point support. These are all things that I would trade in a heartbeat for the changes we actually got. Changes that might actually justify the price hike. So the new S model just seems like a bizarre new addition to Edifier's lineup. My recommendation, even without the lower price tag, is still to go with the NeoBuds Pro instead, and with Edifier dropping the word Pro from the name, I'm sure many people will be inclined to go for them anyway. The truth is that the NeoBuds S will benefit so few people that I'm left wondering, why has Edifier done this? But I want to hear your thoughts on this situation as well. I think the whole Snapdragon Sound thing is both confusing and very interesting, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how this progresses going forwards. Let me know which earbuds you'll be buying, and leave any questions you have down in the comment section. Give this video a like if you found it helpful, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you stay up to date with everything from the channel. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.